A quick preview of Rome. In this video introduction, we'll just present a few quick highlights of some of the many places. For now, let's just take a random hop through the city and show you some of the great highlights. Take a stroll in the main shopping areas near the Via del Corso and into the Campo de Fiore, a very colorful open market that happens in the mornings. Capitoline Hill has got several very nice museums. And then on to the Roman Forum, which was the heart of Rome in the ancient days, 2,000 years ago. And the Colosseum is the greatest standing structure from ancient Rome. And along with the great monuments, we also like to walk in the little back streets, the quiet alleys, the real heart of Rome, the authentic city. And we stroll along in these cobbled alleys to the Pantheon, the most intact building from ancient Rome with its roof still standing 2,000 years later. The Piazza Navona is the living room of the city, one of the main squares where people gather. Piazza del Popolo is another of the major piazzas in the city. The Trevi Fountain, perhaps the most beautiful of all the fountains of the world. Great gathering spot for the locals as well as the tourists. Many of the churches of Rome are like museums. Church of the Gesù, another one of the great Jesuit churches of the city in the Baroque style. And we're visiting these churches not so much as any religious pilgrimage, but it's to see the incredible artworks and the architecture, the paintings, the gilding, the arches, the columns. You'll see Bernini's monuments, you'll see parks, restaurants. There's so many great restaurants to enjoy in Italy, and Rome, being the capital of the country, is the capital of gastronomy as well. And then on to St. Peter's and the Vatican. It's an amazing heavenly building, perhaps the most beautiful interior ever built. Next to it is the Vatican Museum, which is a great treasure house of Italian sculpture, painting from the classical days, as well as from the Renaissance. As you can see, Rome is a great city to explore on foot, and we will show you exactly how to do it. Well, begin your morning walk at the Campo de Fiore. Early birds will be rewarded, for it's one of the only places in Rome that have something happening at about 6:30 in the morning when the vendors are just setting up their stands. Really? And there's several cafes around the Campo de Fiore that are already pumping out that dark fuel to get you going. They open as early as 6 a.m. And so if you're an early bird, or if you're still waking up early from jet lag, do consider coming out to the Campo de Fiore first thing in the morning. And by 7 o'clock, 7:30, they really are open for business. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. It's really one of the great spots of the city. For 500 years, it's been a major square, main gathering place. During the time of the Renaissance, this really was the heart of town. And it is still today a very lively and active spot. As you see, it's all the fruit and veggies and the fish and the cheese, and there's still some flowers. It means field of flowers. They even sell t-shirts and souvenirs. And the fruits are fresh and ripe and ready to eat. This is where a lot of the chefs in town come to pick up their food for their day's cooking as well. And of course, the locals are picking up their items for their daily shopping. And even for us tourists, well, it's nice to look around. We're not going to be doing any cooking probably, but we can buy some fruits, take a lot of pictures, and just soak in the atmosphere. And they have some funky little vehicles, little trucks and little bicycles that bring these goods in. But be sure, if you want to buy the produce or the fruits, to do it in the morning before these stands shut down. Have a look at the huge Palazzo della Cancelleria at the north corner of the Campo de Fiore. And if the big doors are open, take a peek inside at the impressive courtyard, which has a large two-level loggia all around it, built partly with stones and columns scavenged from the ancient theater of Pompeii. This palazzo belongs to the Vatican State, and as such is not officially part of Italy, but it's extraterritorial, sovereign property of the Catholic Church.
The Vatican is still owner of many extra-territorial area in the city. Nothing was totally lost when Italy gets unified in year 1870.
Meander alongside the palace on the little alley to the left called Via Pellegrino, named for the pilgrims who used to trod this route on their way to the Vatican. Notice the doorway on your left-hand side through the iron gate that is generally open. There might be some graffiti on the walls, but don't let that stop you. And you can walk right into a typical residential courtyard. As long as you're quiet and respectful, the neighbors won't even notice you're standing there. Have a look around at this scene, which is so picturesque it has appeared in postcards and books. You might see a few cats scampering around, perhaps a neighborhood dog or two wandering through. So take a few snaps and appreciate this tranquil residential beauty. Continuing along Via Pellegrino, cut through the first alley on your left to Via di Capolari, through the graffiti-scarred arch, and then turn left, returning to Campo de Fiore. One of the better restaurants in this neighborhood is Di Rambo.
Buongiorno, sono Dado del ristorante di Rambo in piazza La Cancelleria accanto a Campo de Fiori. La nostra cucina verte su materie prime di qualità e le cose le facciamo tutte fatte in casa. La signora qui sta facendo i ravioli, sta facendo i biscotti per il dopo pasto, i pani, i dolci sono qui tutti quanti fatti in casa.
Sant Andrea della Valle, named after St. Andrew, who is depicted at the altar in a painting, and there's scenes from the life of St. Andrew up behind the altar as well. And this is built in the Counter-Reformation style, which is a huge nave for preaching to the masses. It was built from about 1590 through about 1630. And then the paintings, the ceiling paintings were added a little bit later. And it's all gilded, lots of stucco sculpture, quite a bit of marble sculpture all around it, and this golden glow that comes from the gilding on all the pilasters and this soaring barrel vaulted nave. This is one of the great churches of the city. It's the second highest dome in Rome after St. Peter's. The dome is beautifully painted with murals, and it was the first successful mural paintings in a curved space, in a dome space, so that's worthwhile. The church has set up this convenient mirror so you don't have to break your neck looking up at all the decorations up on the ceiling. It's actually a lot easier to look down than it is to look up. You've got to get around and see every nook and cranny when you go into a stupendous church like Sant Andrea della Valle. Walk next to the church along Via dei Juari, a charming cobble lane with old apartments above and a few shops at street level, and leads to Via Giubanari, another great street. Continue walking along Via Giubanari, one of the most charming streets in Rome, lined with shops selling clothing as it has for centuries. The stores open about 10 a.m. here, like throughout most of town, so they might just be opening for you depending on your timing this morning. If you're in the mood for browsing, by all means, go for it. Via Giubanari is a lively spot morning, noon, and night. The stores stay open till about 8 or 8:30 in the evening, and the cafes and restaurants are open even later. So any time of day, morning, midday, or evening, Via Giubanari is a great spot to wander. Refreshment is served by the slice at the casual pizzeria Voglia di Pizza. Yeah, there is. With simple outdoor tables that offer ideal people-watching perspective at a very good price. This is a great road. It goes from the Campo de Fiore over to Largo Argentina, basically. About a half mile long. Lots of little shops there. Piazza Fornes is most notable for the impressive Palazo Fornes, one of the largest and most famous Renaissance palaces of the city. The Palazzo Fornes It's just 1 block over from Campo de Fiore. Various important architects helped to create it, including Michelangelo, who designed the central windows above the door and the long cornice at the roofline. The attractive Piazza Fornes has 2 impressive fountains in granite basins that were taken from the baths of Caracalla. And there's restaurants on both sides and a snack bar on one corner for a simple drink or a light meal. Walk behind the palace on the street to the left, Via di Mascherone, to Via Giulia. Well, this is a very important street. It's called Via Giulia, and it's named after Pope Julius II. And he was a very important pope during the Renaissance, and it was he who decreed that this street be created. It was the first straight road to be carved into Rome ever since the ancient Romans. A very important road because it connects the Vatican with downtown. Have a look at this really attractive archway. Well, this too is part of the Palazzo Fornese, and it was constructed to allow the family to walk over to their private chapel, which is this church here. So in walking, it's fine to walk down the middle of the street, but keep your ears open because cars will be coming up behind you. This is Via Monserrato, one of the many quaint little charming streets in this neighborhood. And we'll just walk along it for a few blocks. Exit along the very narrow Via di Cartari and then cross the busy Corso Vittorio Emanuele II and enter another highly decorated church, Chiesa Nova. It's the church called Chiesa Nova, meaning new church. Of course, by now it's no longer a new church. The interior is really spectacular. This was built in the late 1500s, built in the Counter-Reformation style, and it was built for a particular priest named Father Neri, Filippo Neri. And he was a great leader of the church, and the order of the Oratorians is his school of thought in the Catholic Church. And he believed in the joy of life and also simplicity of life. During the time of Neri, the interior of this church was plain, whitewashed, no decor, because that was the philosophy of the Counter-Reformation. And then ironically, after that generation passed on and the Baroque era began in the 1600s, the decorators were brought in, and it went from a plain whitewashed interior to the deluxe gilt interior we see today with all the gold and the stucco statues, all the paintings, the ceiling murals. All of this added later, including the paintings up in the dome and the beautiful golden organs, and everything that looks flashy to the eye was added during the Baroque period. You see these angels here are made from stucco. It's not marble that was carved. It's a marble dust mixed with plaster, and it's molded and then polished off and finished by hand. Let's take a few pictures. Again, it's very dark in here, so if you want to take a photo, you really have to rest your camera against a wooden bench. And don't put your hand in the way, because right away that's shaking it with your hand in the way. Just put the camera itself on the bench and tilt up, and you can get a nice picture. And then in a few minutes, we will continue our walk. The building next door is the Oratorio. It's really a masterwork by Borromini, and it's associated with the church, but in itself it's not a church. It's kind of the offices, and there's a small theater in there. There's a library, archives, and such, and it's internally connected to the church. It is notable because of the beautiful curving facade that was designed by Borromini in his typical style. After you're finished the Chiesa Nova, head on out, take a right, and wrap around the building, and you'll see a beautiful clock tower. It was designed by Borromini. You'll notice that typical convex and concave curves. So notice the restaurant Dal Luigi. This is just here on this section of the Corso Vittorio Emanuele II. This is a great local restaurant, open lunch and dinner. Fabulous spot. Locals come here, very few tourists. It's a little bit out of the way from the main tourist track. So this is a place to come back to for lunch or dinner. They've got fresh pasta. Notice how they cook in the kitchen. This open kitchen, you can have a peek inside if you like to see. Put the fresh pasta into the saucepan, flip it around with the sauce. Get all of those food ingredients all blended and melded in together. They've got a variety of fish dishes as well, of course, and different kinds of meat dishes. Pastas and salads, a nice antipasto spread. At Dal Luigi, you can sit inside, nice and quiet and peaceful, or sit in the outdoor piazza. Now, a note about the restaurant seating in Rome: nowadays it's illegal to smoke cigarettes inside a restaurant. However, you can smoke if you're sitting outdoors at a restaurant. So you might consider, if you want to get away from the cigarette smoke, Italians smoke quite a bit still, then you can sit inside and you'll have nice clean air. Or if you don't care, sit outside and enjoy the outdoor ambience. Into the Piazza Navona with its picture postcard perfect Sant'Agnese Church by Borromini and the stunning Fountain of the Four Rivers by Bernini. Two artists that you will encounter several more times in Rome, Bernini and Borromini, as they were the greatest of Baroque architects and sculptors. This centrally located piazza is considered one of the most beautiful and lively outdoor spaces in the world, and you will probably return here several times, for it is interesting night and day. Originally built as a racetrack by the ancient Roman Emperor Domitian, it still retains the original oval shape that gives it a unique appearance. Piazza Navona is enclosed by faded pastel facades all around that produce a rich feeling of antiquity. It really is the most popular square in the city. The biggest, it's the liveliest, the most fun. Well, you probably don't want to have a meal sitting here at the Piazza Navona because these restaurants are notoriously touristic. It's not a bad place, though, to just sit and have a drink or certainly hang out in the center. You'll notice lots of artists have set up their easels. They can do a quick sketch of you. There's watercolors, there's oil paintings, and the wonderful thing is these are original works of art and you're buying it directly from the artist. There's no middleman involved. It seems like it's busier at night than it is during the day. Right up through about midnight, you'll find lots of people buzzing around in the beautiful Piazza Navona. Walk 2 short blocks to the best preserved ancient building in Rome, the Pantheon. Well, you know what this is, right?
Pantheon.
This is the Pantheon. This is the best place to see it from. If you get a little closer, you can't see the dome. But here we can take in that whole vista. The facade, the piazza in front of it, this whole ensemble, and the dome. Well, the Pantheon is the best preserved building from ancient times, any place in the world, because it's intact. It has its original roof intact, the walls are intact, the interior is all preserved beautifully. There's really nothing that compares to it. This dome is the largest dome ever built until the 20th century. It's not as high off the ground as some other domes, and it's all made of concrete. It's poured concrete. Romans were the masters of that. At its base, it's quite thick, and as it goes up higher, the walls gets thinner. And also the materials at the top are more of a tufa mix, the volcanic tufa. That's a lighter material, and so it wouldn't put as much strain on the top of the dome. Also, you notice the square indentations. That's called coffering. The coffers help to reduce the weight of the dome, and they also provide strength to the dome. It's almost like I-beams that are formed between the coffers. The diameter is equal to the height. So it's like a hemisphere, and if it were complete, we would be in a complete sphere. We frequently upload new movies, so please subscribe to our channel and click that little alarm bell so you'll be notified. And if you enjoyed the movie, how about a thumbs up? And we always welcome comments down below. Or if you have questions about the destination, make note and we'll answer them. Thanks for watching.